Greetings everyone! My name is Visuazath and man do those types of videos take time to create. I apologize for the horrific release interval. Pathetic lamenting aside, I hereby welcome you to my series Game Analysis, where I analyze a specific subject in or a certain part of a game. For example, a trailer, game mechanic or questions regarding failures or successes. In today's episode, I'll tackle the Final Fantasy VII Remake gameplay trailer shown at PlayStation Experience 2015. For the battle system analysis, I will also incorporate those two screenshots provided by Nomura-san at Magic 2017, the Monaco Anime Game International Conferences. Yes, I'm way too late to the party, yet again, and this trailer has already been thoroughly analyzed by so many other people. However, like in the E3 trailer analysis, I think I still have a few unique contributions to make to this subject. Moreover, I want to get this trailer and screenshot analysis out before Square Enix decides to drop the next batch of information, screenshots or, if they're being extra generous, even a new trailer. So please bear with me while I'll most likely go over several points already discussed by other people. Please note that this video contains spoilers for the original game. If you still haven't played Final Fantasy VII yet, I highly recommend doing that first and return to this video once you're done. It's available on virtually any PlayStation platform as well as on PC. Because my analysis of the PSX 2015 trailer has become extremely extensive, I'm going to split it up into two separate videos. The first one will contain the cutscenes where I'll compare the environment, scene direction and characters of the original game, while also sprinkling in a few predictions here and there. The second video will be all about the battle system, including the screenshots from Magic 2017. With this out of the way, let's put our Libra hat on and dive right into it. In this first scene, we hear Jessie and Biggs talk about their new recruit, Cloud Strife. During that, we see the two Shinra grunts patrolling the train station platform at North Edge Station. Then Jessie unlocking the first security door on their way into the first reactor. We see Shinra troops looking at the train disappearing into the tunnel after Cloud's escape. One of the patrol grunts searching for intruders, and finally, the actual conversation between Jessie and Biggs before they meet up with Cloud and open the security door. As you can see, this trailer cares little about chronology. In the first shot, we already see a very faithful recreation of the train station location. The same camera angle, HD versions of the white and yellow limiter lines on the platform, the signals in the background, the part of the station building with the archway leading to the upper level, this other building in the back, and of course the train itself. The general shape is the same, as are the railings and the spikes. The biggest changes are, of course, the dimensions. The train platform is way bigger, there are more details on the architecture around the train, they added floodlights above the station building entrance, and the two Shinra patrol grunts are actively on duty and doing their job, instead of just standing there like mannequins. Personally, I already like the new art direction. It looks very familiar, yet massively modernized and feels more real. Next up is the shot with Jessie's Codebreaker gadget, which presumably unlocks the first security door just above North Edge Station. You can also see a blurry Biggs crouching to her left. In the original game, he's also situated to her left. However, only Jessie's crouching, whereas Biggs is standing upright. Due to the lack of detail, the original game doesn't show Jessie's hacker gadget. In the remake trailer, it looks basic yet functional and might be crafted by Jessie herself. You can also see the three connection cables which access the security door's circuits. Right after, we get a close-up shot of the security door sliding open. It's generally the same as in the original, but has a different build and structure. Its original counterpart also doesn't sport those yellow-black striped plates at the top and bottom. The next shot is the one where Shinra troops are gazing after the train, which Cloud uses as an escape route, disappearing into the tunnel. Here we see previously unseen angles of this area. The original game only showed the immediate surroundings where Cloud got cornered by Shinra with camera facing north. The area we see here is to the south. It looks like we're in the middle of an apartment area. All those windows with drapes, shutters and furniture behind some of them and the air conditioners and balconies to the left contribute to that sentiment. Unfortunately, we can't really compare the shots with the train disappearing into the tunnel, since the angle's off and the camera is too close in the original game. Even comparing the train is nearly impossible because of this. What stands out, though, is the quick descent in the original. In the remake trailer, the train keeps going in a straight line, as it should. I wouldn't want to be on the original game's train ride. Imagine the enacting Coriolis force lifting you out of your seat as the train descends in such a steep angle at this speed. Now we get a close-up body shot of one of the patrol grunts checking the train cars for uninvited guests. The scene is definitely new, as the train station guards in the original didn't move an inch until the Avalanche members disembarked from the train. What I didn't mention earlier is the fact that those two patrol grunts are wearing the usual Shinra grunt uniform, whereas those in the original game are presented in a completely different attire. A red coat-like uniform with a helmet-like headwear, also in red. They also don't seem to carry any firearms, only a simple baton, which is also part of the blue Shinra grunt outfit. Finally, we're at the shot where Biggs and Jessie are talking with each other. This seems to take place just before Jessie unlocks the security door, since she's still crouching, and Biggs gets down to follow suit. Remember that he was already in a crouching position when Jessie unlocked the door. Here we get a glimpse of their faithful remake design by Roberto Ferrari. The hair, the red bandanas, the upper body outfit design, Biggs' short goatee and his weapon and bullet clip holster, it's all there. Only that fishnet overlay on Jessie's neckline seems to be a new addition. In that earlier shot with Jessie's hacker gadget, you can see her gloves and the red band around her wrist, just like in the original design. The dialogue in the remake is obviously not exactly the same as in the original, but the core meaning and sentiment are the same. In the remake, they say the following.
I still don't see why we brought a Shinra soldier along. No way he'd throw all that away for us. What's his name anyway?
Cloud Strife. And he says it's former soldier. Look, heavy security like this, you want a professional.
Now compare this to the original text. Wow, you used to be in soldier, huh? Not every day you'll find one in a group like Avalanche. Soldier? Aren't they the enemy? What's he doing with us in Avalanche? He was in soldier, Jessie, but he quit and is with us now. I didn't catch your name. The following segment is merely a fast forwarding through the E3 trailer while slightly lingering on the more important shots, like Aerith's flower and Cloud. Its only purpose is to create a link between those two trailers. Maybe also to fill up space to time the scenes better to the music. After all, this trailer music is, like in the E3 trailer, not an original composition. As a result, the scenes have to align with the music and not the other way around. If you're curious, this rendition of the bombing mission track was taken from one of the Distant Worlds concerts. In the next scene, Biggs and Jessie knock out one of the two patrol grunts. Biggs grabbing and holding the poor guy while Jessie performs a spin kick directly into the gut. This transpires quite differently than in the original game, where Jessie sidekicks one of the guard while Biggs throws the second one over his shoulder. We don't see the other patrol grunt getting knocked out, but since there's nobody to be seen behind Jessie when she comes running towards Biggs holding the grunt, we can assume that Biggs took out the other one. Unless they changed even more and let Wedge body slam the guy or Barret punch him into the wall. In any case, Jessie doesn't take on one of the patrol grunts by herself. They probably don't want to risk her getting overwhelmed. She's mainly a techie after all. In this shot right here, notice how thin her frame and limbs are? Even with a great technique, you'll most likely get slammed with those noodle arms. Here we see Barret for the first time. His tattoo is the same one he had in Advent Children. The one in the original game looks quite different. However, his jacket and the haircut are pretty much spot on if we take the shift from cartoony to realism into account. And the glasses? Well, they look cool, but why the heck did Nomura-san add them in the first place? Maybe he wants to hide his emotions, detaching himself from his morals. Eyes are the door to one's soul, they say. Hiding the eyes behind sunglasses is like putting on a mask. My hypothesis is that Barret only wears them during missions and gets rid of them completely after the Sector 7 platefall. In their hideout, he doesn't have to shield himself from reality and hide his emotions. He's in his safe haven, especially around Marlene. The platefall is a traumatic event for Barret. He loses Jessie, Biggs and Wedge, his home and Avalanche. All he did prior to that incident led to destruction and despair. He has to leave his precious life behind and is also most likely sick of hiding behind a facade. God, I'm horrible at armchair psychology. Let's move on. Barret's line,
"We're paying you more than a few gil. You best be worth it."
is way different than the original one where he simply says, "Ex-soldier, I don't trust you." Cloud's line,
"Look, I don't care about your politics,"
is taken from his conversation with Barret either by the Reactor entrance just before Barret joins the party or a bit later in the elevator. At the formal location, he replies with, "I'm not here for a lecture, let's just do it." Whereas in the elevator he simply says, "It's not my problem." Both lines are a counter to Barret's rambling about Shinra sucking Mako out of the planet, which results in the latter dying. I'm sure Barret's line will change as well, which makes Cloud's "I don't care" line a better fitting answer. Now back to the scene. Notice the right door behind Barret and the two lights in the background? This indicates that we're still not through the security door Jesse opened for us. The others seem to have run ahead, as indicated by Wedge, who is already disappearing behind the corner. The scene is very similar to the one in the original game, just with a slightly different dialogue. Furthermore, Wedge disappears to the right. This matches the layout of the area behind the security door if we compare it to the original. They seem to have completely redesigned the surroundings though, since there doesn't seem to be any other way than turning right, whereas in the original there were a few branching paths, albeit each one of them being a dead end. The only similar thing I can make out is a cylindrical shaped thing in the background. Right after Barret finishes his sentence, the scene changes to the innermost area of the reactor, where Cloud and Barret, after planting the bomb, prepare themselves for the Guard Scorpion's attack. Here, we witness more radical improvements over the original scenes. There, a static screen, stationary characters with minor animations and some text boxes notified us about the incoming enemy, but we never see it until the battle starts. In this trailer, the camera rotates around our protagonists, showing them preparing themselves for the battle by checking the surroundings while the enemy is approaching fast. This is also the first time we see Barret in full glory. Let's compare him to the original design and the one from Advent Children. All in all, it's a faithful adaptation from the deformed anime look to a more realistic approach. The haircut, beard, scar and earring, everything's there. As are his jacket with the torn off sleeves, the green trousers, the main belt as well as those additional belly belts, the dog tags and of course his gun arm, whose arm attachment piece resembles the one he wears in Advent Children. The attached Gatling gun is the very same from the E3 trailer, as are those additional pockets strapped to his legs. The gloves on his left hand are fingerless, just like in the original, though the forearm extension is designed completely different. Instead of metal rings, it seems to be a thick leather or sturdy cloth held together with belts. Before we take a first look at the Guard Scorpion, let's compare Cloud's gauntlets to his original design. His right hand sports his rather plain, dark brown long gauntlet with a riveted armband, same as in the original, where it is a bit shorter however. On his left hand and forearm, he has the same unique and recognizable but rather impractical multi-layered and cylindrical gauntlet with long rivets all around and jointed finger protectors. Due to the slightly altered proportions, the main rings of the gauntlet are farther apart and show the brown cloth underneath. The same cloth that extends to the glove section of the gauntlet, where there are also a few rivets present on the back of his hand. If you count the visible long rivets on the main gauntlet rings, the numbers seem to match. The remake design even presents the bandage-like skin protection underneath the gauntlet, which we'll be able to see a bit better later in the trailer during the scene with Wedge. Here we can actually see the Guard Scorpion approaching, unlike in the original scene. What strikes me as strange is its ability to scale walls. Sure, its pointy legs dig into the concrete wall. You can even see some debris flying off after impact. The Guard Scorpion is huge and heavy, so unless it got some other means to defy gravity, just digging the legs into the wall wouldn't cut it. In the still image here, we can see the walkway down below. Since neither Barret nor Cloud are anywhere to be found here, and because we also see an entrance in the middle, this part of the walkway has to be the one with the save point in the original. Even though there are many differences in the details, the main structure is the same. We have the angled walls and the pipe leading downwards, albeit smaller and placed differently. The entrance is there, but presented in much more detail. The walkway area right in front of the doorway draws a perfect rectangle in contrast to the polygonal one in the original, and there are many lamps hanging from the horizontal power cords. Interestingly, the ladder Cloud has to use in order to get to and from the platform is nowhere to be found. This could be an indicator that the inner layout of the reactor will be drastically different, and Barret and Cloud enter this area through the door like normal people. As you can see, the remake seems to be faithful to the core of the original while still taking a lot of liberty in the details. I'm sure this is also true regarding plot and story. In the next series of short footage excerpts, we experience the first real-time gameplay section where Cloud traverses through a bunch of debris, direct result of the recent reactor explosion. In the original game, after the reactor explodes, we jump right to the place where Jesse plants an explosive to blast through debris to be able to escape the collapsed tunnel. This gameplay section in the trailer is proof for one of the many expansions the remake will have. Here we actually make our way through to the scene in the original. We see broken pipes with leaking water, sparks coming from severed cables, and rubble and big chunks of concrete pieces that broke off the walls and ceiling. That's what I call authenticity. Since this area is new, there's not much to compare, unless you count the pipes on the ceiling, which can also be seen at the blasting site in the original. How Cloud traverses this tunnel, however, brings up some interesting points. First thing to notice is the Buster Sword on Cloud's back. Finally, we can see the equipped weapon on the characters. In the original, they could get away with a missing weapon due to graphical restrictions, but in this more realistic art style, visible weapons are a must in my opinion. I predict that we'll see the equipped weapons on all characters at all times, unless the story calls for it, like in Wall Market or on the Junon cargo ship. The second point to mention is how Cloud shimmies through this narrow space. This is very reminiscent of the mechanic in Final Fantasy XV, which most likely was a source of inspiration. Maybe this mechanic was already planned for or even implemented in Final Fantasy Versus 13, which was helmed by Nomura-san before it mutated into Final Fantasy XV. I wouldn't even be surprised if they took Noctis' animation data as a placeholder in order to have a trailer ready for PSX 2015. Third and last new addition is the ability to crouch and move underneath a low ceiling or debris. Again, very similar to Final Fantasy XV. I just hope there won't be an immersion breaking indicator to press X like in Final Fantasy XV. Interesting to note here is that we can see Wedge and Barret walking by on the other side of this little debris tunnel. This leads me to the conclusion that Cloud was separated from the others during the reactor explosion and has to make his way back to them. A nice way of integrating a traversal tutorial without shoehorning it in. Now we finally reach a point in the original where Jessie blows up the debris that blocks their way out. While the scene in general seems to play out the same, there are again many differences in detail. In the original, Avalanche runs back into the tunnel to take cover from the blast, mainly because the blocked path is directly in front of them. In the remake, the blocked path is around the corner, where there's no need to fall back this much. Being around the corner seems to be enough. Well, almost, since Wedge, who sits closest to the blast, will have his pants on fire in the following scene. At least the position of the Avalanche members while Jessie plants the bomb in the original and the scene in the remake are roughly the same, with Jessie and Wedge in the front and the rest in the back. Also, they preserved the cable rails on the wall and possibly the pipes and the big cables on the ceiling. We can't see them here, but there were some on the ceiling in the previous shots. By just watching the trailer, you don't really notice it, but if we step through frame by frame, we can unveil the many tricks they used for the explosion effects to save development time. Notice a huge pile of debris blocking the way. In the very next frame, where the explosion effect initiates, it's completely gone. As we move forward, follow the flying debris closely. Each and every one of them completely disappears upon contact with the wall. The bouncing off particles and the volumetric smoke, however, look very nice and cover the workload saving tricks quite nicely. I do hope though that they improve the behavior of the exploding debris in the final product. Next up, we follow Cloud, who's running from the reactor exit through the streets of Sector 8 to the rendezvous point at the train station. That building corner in this first shot right here is most likely the same as this one from the original, where Avalanche splits up to avoid detection. Another indicator is also the railing on the left. Here we can confirm the consistent building design in Sector 8. I'm of course referring to the windows, drapes and air conditioners. Since we're still very close to the reactor, there's much more visible destruction than in the following shots. Huge fires are burning, a part of the building seems to be broken off, and there's a batch of severed powerline cables hanging from the powerline pole. In the next shot, we can identify the debris better. It seems to be a part of a highway situated on top of the buildings. You can clearly see a road between the bridge borders and at least one lane separation strip in the middle of it. We've already seen a bunch of highways in the E3 2015 reveal trailer running through the city above the buildings. This one might as well be such a highway. Okay, let's back up a bit, because we quickly need to talk about the current state the game is in. Sure, it looks amazing, but if you look closely, there are still many graphical flaws roaming around. Let's look at the weird border along the power lines, which cuts off those vertical window grid thingies first. This is either due to faulty anti-aliasing, inaccurate ambient occlusion, or some other unfinished post-processing effect. The other thing is this short segment in the railing. As Cloud comes around the corner, it's completely visible and then it grows in thickness until the camera's close enough or the segment is far away enough from the building. This happens to all three rightmost segments. This is most likely the result of the same faulty effect as the one around the power line. It's very obvious that this is still a game in development and it's not a polished up trailer or false advertisement. In this next shot, some effect noise is clearly visible around the left side of Cloud's model. Also, the rendering of direct shadow is either missing or disabled for performance reasons. Just look at the guy sitting on the ground and the car further down the road. At least the reflection looks nice and detracts from the not so obvious flaws this build of this game still has. Probably what Nomura-san meant when stating that the quality of the game will only improve in the future. Here, the aftermath of the explosion can be seen all over the place. A woman standing in the middle of the street, confused by what just happened. I say this because we can spot her in the very first shot walking onto the street, standing still in the next, and still standing here in this shot. She most likely saw the car accident further down the road, where the vehicle crashed into that now slanted pole with no parking sign attached to it. Humor amid a tragedy. This right here puts my mind to ease about whether the humor will still be in the game or not. More signs of the aftermath are that guy sitting depressed on the ground with paper and trash lying all around, and those market neon lights flickering frantically. Also notice how the woman on the street gets startled as Cloud runs past her. Or maybe it's just a random animation, who knows? By the way, can we all agree that the light reflection effect of the Buster Sword does look really nice? But damn, the thing is bright! Now I know why Barret puts on those sunglasses. Jokes aside, you can clearly see the wear and tear on the Buster Sword, especially on the dark surface and the blade itself. Second, Cloud didn't really seem to care about Angeal's legacy. Shame on you both! In the next shot, we see more signs of the explosion's fallout in this sector. There are still bricks lying around, sparks are flying from the severed power line cable, another car that crashed into the building and broke down with presumably the driver checking on his vehicle. There are people gathering in front of what I assume is a hotel, talking about what just happened, and if you pay attention, you can even see the ashes from the explosion falling down like snow. It's really a nice touch. In the original, we saw nothing of that. Nomura-san even promised that they'll delve more into the lives of the people and NPCs. Or was it Kitase-san? I can't remember. Before we move on to the next scene, take notice of the street sign. It's not clear what it refers to, but it's either just saying 8th Street with a reference to Sector 8 where we're currently in, or it shows the way to Sector 8. The former seems more plausible to me since we're already supposed to be in Sector 8. Between this and the next scene, we'll meet Aerith and run across the plaza with a fountain. The former is of course absent from this trailer and the latter will be covered later. After a little time jump, we arrive at the rather famous scene where Cloud gets surrounded by Shinra troops. Again, at the core, the scene is very similar to its original counterpart. The enemy is closing in from all sides and Cloud keeps turning around in search for a way out. Even the camera angle in the beginning is very close to the bird's eye view from the original. What's different, however, is the exact location. Originally, Cloud gets surrounded right over the tunnel where the train emerges moments later, with Cloud catching the opportunity right away by jumping onto it. In this trailer, however, it seems like we're on the left side of the railroad when checking the visible part below street level. There is no tunnel exit to be seen. If we compare this shot to the one at the beginning of the trailer, where Cloud has already escaped, and with another one that's coming up later where Cloud is in the process of catching a train, we can clearly see this whole scene takes place along the railroad and not above the tunnel. Another slight difference is the Buster Sword, which isn't visible at all in the original scene, but this again makes perfect sense considering the generation gap regarding graphical fidelity. The next shot shows a close-up of the Shinra troops, where we can marvel at their faithful modern recreation. Nomura-san, however, doesn't seem to be as impressed, since he told us the Shinra grunts won't be in the next showing of the remake, since they're still working on their design. Does that mean they look different? How much different? Just more details or a complete change? I hope they only improve the current design and don't change too much. On closer inspection, they do look rather plain and boring, especially the clothing and the teal scarf. On the flip side, their shoulder armor, helmet and guns look fantastic in my opinion and should remain as is. The last shot in this scene focuses on Cloud. Here we have better look on his remake design, at least the upper body. His outfit looks pretty much identical, down to the fabric, the color of the uniform, the suspenders, the shoulder armor with the 3 screws, the belts, as well as those 3 dots on the shoulder armor and the suspenders. Only his hair has been significantly shortened, presumably to match the more realistic art style. This has been a trend throughout all compilation titles, so this comes as no surprise. Many people have already expressed their disdain for Cloud's remake hairstyle, especially since it kind of looks like a wig for cosplayers and the length of some of the strands seem off. Let's have a quick look at the surroundings. There's a long street in the background and buildings to the right. The railroad must therefore be on the left side. This is corroborated by the long street in the background if we compare this shot with the one from the beginning of the trailer. One last thing I want to mention are those 2 illuminated signs. The one on the window in green and yellow, and the bright rectangular one behind one of the grunts. Those two don't seem to resemble anything or be important in any way, but keep them in mind as we'll get to them later. Moving on to the next scene, which takes place much earlier in the game. Barret enters the scene, probably to tell the others not to stick together and spread out, just like in the original where he enters the scene from the right. Here he shoves Cloud to the side, probably to show who's in charge and how little he cares for Cloud on a personal level. He's only a hired gun, or sword if you will, after all. In the background, we see Jessie hacking the security door and Biggs crouching next to her. This indicates that this scene takes place between their conversation about Cloud and where Jessie unlocks the door. We also see Wedge standing around in the background, setting up the scene with him and Cloud that happens a little later in this trailer. Here we see most of his whole body, and as the other characters, his remake design resembles the original artwork very closely. The suspenders and the diagonal strap with a huge connector, his light yellow shirt and the blue shorts, the shoulder armor, which has been slightly modified to a layered model instead of a plain one, the dark olive sleeve finishers of his shirt around the elbows, his head red band and the thick strands of hair poking out on his right side, and they even gave him those two grenades back, which are attached to his belt. Another thing to note here is the thick wall next to the security door. It has been quite accurately recreated for the remake, especially the pillar-like finish next to the door, which possesses two parallel vertical stripes with an inset area in between, an angled segment at the bottom, and the yellow-black striped horizontal line. There are much more details on the structure compared to the original. However, those three signs on the original wall are completely missing in the remake, unless they are off-screen. Before we move on, I'd like to point out that the color of Cloud's outfit seems to react quite heavily to the ambient lighting. When facing off against the Shinra troops, the purple tint becomes visible compared to here where it looks rather black. Either just due to lighting, or both scenes are taken from different builds of the game where Cloud's outfit received a slight redesign in color. If so, let's just hope the purple one is the final one. Although, if we take Crisis Core for reference, only Soldier 3rd and 2nd class have the purple version of the outfit. Zack's 1st class uniform is rather dark blue and almost black, just like Cloud's outfit here, as is the one he gives to Cloud before escaping Nibelheim after their captivity. Also, remake Cloud's PlayArt Sky figurine is held in a very dark bluish purple. To be fair, in the original artwork, as well as in the FMVs of the original game, his outfit also looks rather dark with a strong bluish tint and not outright purple like his field model. All character field models in the original were given rather bright colors for easy differentiation from other characters and the background. I guess we'll have to wait for more footage or even the final game. The following shot shows Biggs and Jessie from head to toe. As mentioned already in previous scenes, their design is very faithful to their original artwork. All details have been preserved, down to the design of their shoes. The metal parts of Biggs' shoes, Jessie's socks and the weapon belts on both, all there. Especially Jessie's breastplate. The only real difference I can make out are Jessie's shoulder armor plates, which are wrapped around her upper arms with an opening at the top instead of protecting her shoulders from above, like in the original design. She also now has some sort of blue gauntlet extension and this black fixture near the elbow. This can be attributed to the change in body proportions, though. It probably would have looked strange if she had naked lower arms instead. In the background, we can also see the full body frame of Barret. By taking a look at his shoes, which we haven't seen before, they seem to match those in the original artwork pretty well, at least as far as I can tell from this blurry mess. Also, comparing both full body models side by side, apart from the different proportions, Barret still looks like Barret in my opinion. Just more modern, realistic and serious. Let's just hope his serious appearance and behavior in this trailer give way to a sometimes silly and overly dramatic Barret. We need arm waving, swearing and scoffing Barret back. Oh man, I'm so excited to see him in his sailor suit outfit. This is going to be hilarious! Now we're at the scene with Cloud and Wedge, with the latter being naively in awe with Cloud, believing he does this for the sake of the planet as well. To which Cloud answers with his catchphrase, "not interested," which he actually never uses in the original game. It's only ever a dialogue option, at least in the English translation. According to Japanese savvy people, Cloud does use his catchphrase a lot in dialogue in the Japanese version of the script. It needs to be said that this conversation is new in the remake. In the original, Wedge doesn't say a word in the scene in front of the security door. If we pay attention to Cloud's facial expressions, we clearly see that he's not with Avalanche for the planet, nor is he interested in any sort of banter with its members. His arm gesture even pronounces this sentiment, in the sense of, "I don't care about what you say, I'm only here for the money." In this shot of Cloud, we see another small retcon of his outfit. In the original, he didn't have those two belts underneath the big one with the soldier logo. Those two belts were an addition to all soldier uniforms in Crisis Core. What really bothers me here though is Cloud's left arm clipping through his torso. Right there. I think this is due to a modeling or even rigging error which causes his left arm to shift towards the torso, shoulder included. This also has a negative effect on his posture. He looks slightly pulled together as if he's uncomfortable in his skin right now and wants to leave. Hopefully this gets fixed in the final build. Another small detail I want to direct your attention to are the spare bullets or slugs on Wedge's diagonal strap, as seen on his original artwork. They are mostly covered by his machine gun in the trailer, but at least we are able to see the top one of those 4. In the next shot, we have a clear view on Barret's upper torso and head. In this comparison, we see the similarities in the hair and beard department much better. Quick question, was his nose always a bit slanted to the right? Also, notice Biggs and Jesse running around the corner in the background. When Barret calls Wedge to get the move on, we see Wedge's face and therefore those sticking out strands of hair much better. Now we get thrown back to the scene with Cloud and the Shinra troops surrounding him. Here, something interesting happens. The grunt focused by the camera seems to recognize Cloud. His lips form a word which might be Cloud's name and his face looks hesitant. Then, Cloud turns toward that specific grunt and something clicks inside his head. That's when the seizure starts, just like in the reactor before planting the bomb. The seizure here, however, is a new addition to the scene and seems to prompt Cloud to mosey and escape the Shinra troops. Nomura-san did say Cloud's episodes will be more prevalent and play a more important role in the remake. Such new additions will therefore happen more often. Call me intrigued. After Cloud starts running away, the grunt yells, "Get back here!" And then another one starts shooting at Cloud. This always struck me as strange, since the grunt's gesture and facial expression tell a completely different story. In the Japanese version of this trailer, he yells, "Mate!" And not in a commanding tone, but rather with a slight desperation. For those not familiar with the Japanese language, mate is simply translated to wait. This makes much more sense considering the grunt seems to recognize Cloud and is now hesitant to do something. That's why another grunt starts shooting instead of the one yelling wait. As to who that might be, I don't know. The only person I can think of is the 2nd Infantryman during the Nibelheim incident, who accompanied Cloud, Zack and Sephiroth. Notice how we see only one of the grunts, as in the real Cloud, being on the bridge when it collapses? Since we never see that guy ever again, I assume he wasn't on the bridge when he collapsed and probably didn't fall victim to Sephiroth's fire rampage either. And before you object, that infantryman lying on the ground while the town is on fire is the real Cloud as well. Okay, back to Midgar. In the original scene, the guards and Cloud have a small back and forth. One of the grunts says, "This is as far as you go," with Cloud replying, "I don't have time to mess around with you guys." After which the grunt gets impatient and yells, "Enough battling, grab him!" In the remake, this encounter seems to bear much more weight and significance instead of the usual empty one-liners. Now follows a string of battle scenes which I will now skip. I'll cover the battle system in the second video of this analysis. After the battle scenes, the train is almost at the small opening where Cloud has the opportunity for his escape and catching up with Avalanche at the same time. Right before the train speeds into the frame, we have a great look at the inside of the tunnel. Although there's nothing of interest in particular, we can spot a few reused assets we've already seen in previous scenes after the reactor explosion. For example the pipes, the cable railings on the wall and the other cables in general. Despite the heavy motion blur, we can make out the same locomotive model that's been used in all of the compilations so far. The red wheel connectors and the fancy exhaust-like pipes on the side of the locomotive are the main characteristics of its identity. In the following few frames, we get to see some details on the bottom of the cars. Nothing special here, but every little detail might be of interest to somebody out there. Better safe than sorry, right? At the very least, it shows the strong attention to detail the developers have while crafting this game. In the next scene, we see Cloud running away from gunfire. This is straight up another Star Wars reference. How, you might ask? Well, remember the low aiming accuracy of the stormtroopers? Notice how there's one single grunt who doesn't shoot at all. All the others are firing away their whole ammunition arsenal. This one grunt is the same one who allegedly recognizes Cloud and wants him to stop by yelling "wait" and extending his arm as if to hold Cloud back from running. In the first few frames of Cloud's escape, you can see his arm still halfway raised while he slowly lowers it as he reluctantly grabs his rifle, but doesn't shoot. When the camera has pulled back far enough, we can see the top of the train cars. Unfortunately, they didn't adapt the original train's design for the remake. Notice the more rounded shape of the car roof in the original escape sequence and the blunt spikes on the sides? The remake model of this passenger train looks mostly flat and there are no spikes on either side. But that's nitpicking at a very high level. In the end, such minuscule details are largely irrelevant on a mere train that doesn't have any significance in the grand scheme of things. Before we move on, have a look at the surroundings. In this shot, we can compare the remake to the original area quite well. Wherever you look, there's nothing even remotely similar in terms of finer details. Only the general architecture and layout of this part of the city match up. I did find one thing that led to other findings which tie all battle scenes and those with the surrounding cloud together. Can you see the arced passageway with the greenish gold framed sign in the middle, far back in the background? This looks awfully familiar to the one with the clock where the camera zooms out from during the intro FMV in the original game, and in the PS3 technical demo and Crisis Core secret ending. What is situated right in front of this arced passageway? The Fountain Plaza where Cloud runs through after meeting Aerith and before getting surrounded. Now, if you look closely, you can spot the very fountain between the lantern posts behind the Shinra truck. But there's more imagery to connect these areas together. For the purpose of clarity, let's go through the battle sequences to tie the various landmarks together. But first, let me pull up footage of Crisis Core's rendition of the original game's intro FMV. Why not the original? The area south of the Fountain Plaza is all messed up there. Here we have our reference image. Now we'll go through the battle scenes. Here we see the first jeep with the elevated and roofed walkway adorned with illuminated pillars in the background. And here's the second jeep with the same type of walkway on the opposite side of the first one. And yes, there's a hotel sign in the background, not relevant. Here we see the first jeep again with the pillar walkway behind and a familiar building seen from the opposite side. In this shot we can see the first and second jeep with that familiar building on the left, and another hotel sign, but that's not the same one as before. Now it gets interesting. See that small portion of a rectangular illuminated sign far back in the background? That's the same as the one during the first scene with a close-up shot of a surrounded cloud. Now, see the other neon sign around the corner? Remember that one, it'll come up later. Here the camera points a little bit more to the right as we still see the street where Cloud gets surrounded later, and there's also the second jeep. In this scene, two jeeps arrive with reinforcements. If we compare the background with the one from an earlier scene where the train disappears into the tunnel, we see the buildings are exactly the same. This tells us that those jeeps are coming from the south, since the train comes from the north. Keep those two jeeps also in mind. We can also see the white speed limit sign with a black 30 on it. Now take a look at those two jeeps in the back, the neon sign saying "We buy gold" and the white speed limit sign with a black 30 on it. We know where the jeeps came from, and we know the neon sign from an earlier scene with Cloud being surrounded, where those two jeeps are also visible. We can also slightly see that illuminated rectangle from that same scene here on the right side, which we saw earlier from the Fountain Plaza where Barret performed his big shot special attack. Meaning, we're looking south right now. To tie this shot to another scene, have you noticed the red vehicle on the other side of the railroad trench to the left? That's the same as the one we see when Cloud starts running away and when he's jumping onto the train. While we still have the reference map on the screen, I want to show you some more interesting bits. See the T-shaped walkway in front of the reactor? Looks very familiar, doesn't it? Also, the path Cloud takes through the streets of Sector 8 can roughly be laid out like this. As you can see, everything connects beautifully. I really wonder how much we'll be able to explore in the final game. May I ask a weird question? Why the heck is Barret fighting alongside Cloud on the Fountain Plaza? Isn't he supposed to board the train at that point? I don't believe he jumped out of nowhere just to help Cloud kick some Shinra butt and then leave him standing to fend for himself in order to catch the train. That doesn't make any sense. My guess is that they needed a place to show off Barret in battle and chose to fabricate the fake battle scenario on the Fountain Plaza. The Shinra grunts might have even been the only enemy ready for showing off in a trailer at that point for all we know. I'm not even sure if a battle will be taking place there. The original game didn't have any battles on the Fountain Plaza after all. But this is a reimagining disguised as a remake. Even Nomura-san confirmed this. So anything is possible, I guess. Anyhow, as well done this trailer is, I have to point out a grave inconsistency I found while analyzing it. Remember the jeep next to the concrete railing in the background where Cloud starts running just before the battle sequences? That vehicle is nowhere to be found while the Shinra grunts are firing at Cloud. Also, where are the grunts who were so close to the concrete railing? Those two scenes just don't match up. What does match up, however, is the position of the truck relative to that reluctant grunt and also the building above the railroad tunnel exit. In general, most details match up perfectly, just not the grunts on the sidewalk and the jeep. One little thing I want to mention before we proceed to the Guard Scorpion is Cloud's jump. Many people harbor some amount of trepidation towards impossible gravity-defying maneuvers in the remake. I can't blame them, since we had tons of those in the movie Advent Children, which was also directed by Tetsuya Nomura-san. But this jump right here does not exhibit any inhuman feats. It's just a normal jump with a preceding in-run. It might look spectacular due to smart camera work, but it's a perfectly realistic one, especially considering Cloud's enhanced body strength. Okay, I lied. There's one more thing I want to show you. While Cloud rides on the train, there's the very same wall that's also visible during the overhead shot of a surrounded Cloud earlier in this trailer. Top and middle rows of triangles, or whatever those are, the wide squared plates in between and those broad brown dotted vertical metal struts every 3 meters or so can be seen in both shots. Okay, now I'm done. Moving on to the next scene. Fun fact, there are a bunch of people who thought that the Guard Scorpion fight now takes place on the train. It's silly, but I don't blame them. That nearly seamless transition makes it almost seem like the Guard Scorpion jumps onto the train in the tunnel. But as I said, it's just a well done transition back into the reactor. In the very first frame of this scene, we get a sneaky close-up shot of Cloud, which makes for a great wallpaper for any Cloud lover out there. While still being miles better than Final Fantasy XV, the anti-alias solution on the hair still suffers that alpha noise problem. It's not too bad though. At least his face looks healthier compared to the very last shot of this trailer. Now, the camera shifts upward towards the incoming Guard Scorpion. Here we can clearly see the shape of this area, which seems to be completely circular. In the original game, this room was octagonal shaped. Just before it lands, we have a crisp, clear shot of the structure behind Cloud and Barret. Let's compare it to the one in the original, where they planted the bomb. It's designed completely differently in the remake. The tall cylindrical object with numerous pipes and a big valve in the front is completely missing. In the trailer, there's only a small bland structure with elevated half-spherical platforms on either side and a bolted door in the middle. Might there be a control room inside? Will it be accessible? Will we need to initiate the self-destruction sequence instead of planting a bomb? Will Selfie jump in to blow everything to smithereens? So many questions! At least there's still a valve attached to one of the pipes and smoke fuming all around the place. Along the back wall, there's a big vertical strut with those zigzag stabilizers. Just like in the original. More points for accuracy. The lamps on the wall are definitely a new addition, however. I guess the Mako glow was enough to illuminate the whole room in the original. Huh? Why the long faces? Alright, you want to see the Guard Scorpion? Here you go! Okay, I have to say it's impressive. We've only seen it from behind so far and it already looks awesome. The details are fantastic. You can even make out a pair of wheels underneath. Maybe it can transform into a tank or something. A few frames later we see its tail rising, which already begins charging up its laser. Attack when its tail's up! It's gonna counterattack with its lasers! Please Square Enix, incorporate this joke in the remake in some way. Now we finally see the whole machine in its full HD glory. In general, its new design compares very well to the original one, especially its arm guns with the small claw-like hands underneath the barrel. Its legs are much more detailed, but the general shape and structure is the same. Other details are a bit altered, like the green eyes in the middle, where there were previously only 2 situated a bit lower. There are also the green light and that small triple circle thingy on its torso and the flashlight on its head. Nothing too big of a deal. What's completely new, however, is the big wheel in front. Interesting side note, the G-Bike version of the Guard Scorpion has exactly the same design as the one in the remake. To provide some context, G-Bike is, or rather was, a free-to-play mobile phone game which essentially recreated the bike chase minigame, just more elaborate in different locations, against different enemies, with more skills, more flash and microtransactions. The almost identical design is easily explained. CyberConnect 2, the developer responsible for G-Bike, was also hired to work on the Final Fantasy VII Remake. So utilizing the already existing design was apparently a no-brainer. However, as of summer 2017, CyberConnect 2 isn't working on the remake anymore. Something caused Square Enix to enter partnership with them and move development completely in-house. But that's a story for another day. I've gone on a tangent for long enough now, so let's get on with it. There's only one scene left to dissect. The arrival at North Edge Station after Jesse and Biggs get rid of their station patrol. The first shot contains all Avalanche members. We get a good look at Jesse's armor and fishnet shirt. The blue shirt underneath, however, looks more like a long-sleeved swimsuit, to be honest. Also, the shoulder plates definitely differ from her original design. But who cares? She looks smoking hot either way. We covered Wedge enough already, but there's one detail we haven't properly seen yet. The bullets on his ammunition belt. They are clearly visible here and in bigger numbers than in the artwork. In the next shot, we get another good look at Barret, especially the gauntlet thing on his left arm, the scars on his face and his big Venus biceps. Have you been working out on a train ride here, Mr. Wallace? One last comparison of his head in the original artwork proves the faithfulness. He's just less cartoony with more realistic proportions. Nothing groundbreaking, but behind Barret we can get a good view on the cargo train. one last image comparison for prosperity. Here we witness Cloud's infamous jump from a train onto the platform. By comparing both animations, we can see the effort in recreating this jump resulting in success. The only real difference is the addition of the Buster Sword, which looks even more badass, especially when Cloud slowly attaches it to his back. His hair still looks like a wig though. This scene, while faithfully recreated, does have some differences when comparing to the original. In the remake, Barret's line precedes Cloud's jump, while in the original, Barret's line happens after. He does beckon him down though, just like in the remake. Also, Barret's line is slightly different. In the original, he says,
Come on, newcomer, follow me.
which isn't too far from
Okay, recruit, let's move.
the latter flows a bit better and sounds more natural in my opinion. Before we conclude this part of the trailer analysis, I want to direct your attention to a very small detail that could potentially turn out very significant. Take note of this rim right below the Buster Sword's guard. This is not part of the original design. However, there's a theory floating around the internet, originally coined by a user named Chip Noir, as far as I remember. His theory says that sometime during the remake, presumably when Cloud regains his real self, he detaches the grey guard of the Buster Sword and underneath appears the retconned golden guard from the compilation. If we take a good look at the compilation version, this rounded off rim does exist and also sticks out quite a bit, making it very much possible for the grey riveted guard to cover up the golden part of the Buster Sword. I really like this theory, especially because it would add another layer to Cloud's fake self and support his recovery in a visual way. Technically, we're now through with the analysis. However, the trailer scenes are anything but chronological, which is why I'd like to present these trailer scenes in chronological order to round up this in-depth and hopefully interesting analysis. If you made it this far, congratulations! You rock! Now let's enjoy some chronological goodness. Alright, this wraps up the first part of the PSX 2015 gameplay trailer analysis. I hope you enjoyed my take on the scenes in this trailer, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about my in-depth analysis. Let me know if there's something I missed or misinterpreted. Remember that this whole video is just based on other already published analyses as well as my own personal findings and conclusions. You're free to disagree with me and share your counterpoints. Let's have a discussion in the comment section down below. That being said, thank you so much for listening in, and I hope to see you again in part 2 of this trailer analysis, where I'll cover the battle system including the screenshots from Magic 2017. And always remember, stay safe and take care. Vizuazath signing off.